The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
The power struggle might be continuing or coming to an end.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast.
You talked about yesterday, one of the key points of the offseason that maybe we thought was going to be a negative has turned out to be a positive so far in Brian Gregory. I have a clip from the 11-minute docu show today that the Suns released on their YouTube channel talking about all things that went on during the NBA draft process. So check this out and tell me what you think, Brendan.
The key BG is who do you want to take at 41?
We gotta figure this out. Elbow between these two guys, you know what I mean? He's got an NBA skill, and he is 6'7".
That's what makes it tough. I would be fine either way, though. Take a swing at the elite shooter.
And then he's an elite shooter, obviously, at 6'7".
For two ways?
Yeah, these would be two ways. I'm the GM. We'll take Kobe Bryant. You take the best shooter in the country. He's going to be on the two-way. Opens it up for whatever we can get on the free agent market. Hey, Mike, I'm going to give you the name. I'm freaking tired of waiting.
Well, you can give me the name. I can wait if you want me. I can go longer. I can go down to like 5.
No. Kobe Bryant, Kentucky.
Brian Gregory, the star of the Phoenix Suns draft night propaganda, showing us only what they want to show us. So we got to keep that in there. And it's a really good watch, an easy 11 minutes to digest on the Suns YouTube channel. Before I ask you the main question, what did you think about that? Brian Gregory, kind of the star of the show.
Well, rightly so, right? I mean,
right. You would think,
as he said. So, yeah, it's also funny in there, like you said, with what we can't see. They don't tell us who they're talking about. 2 people. It's clear that it was Brea or somebody, and they allude to it like 2 or 3 different times of the other. Like he says, let's go with this one, and then you can kind of tell there's like a cut where he probably had just been talking about the other guy, and then when he says the free agent thing, he's clearly saying like we'll fill that skill set in free agency since we're not drafting that guy, and we don't know what that even is. So, yeah, it's like you're listening to it, and then you just want to know more because you're getting a little, you want more. But, yeah, I think Brian Gregory is a funny character. That's all I can say. I mean, every time we hear from the guy, it's the accent, the kind of goofiness, whatever. But, hey, I mean, I can't argue with the draft class, so I guess, he's the one laughing right now after that summer league.
It's so funny because I've went on a couple of different shows, and every single way that I've characterized Brian Gregory as he is the most boring individual ever. But in this, he kind of had a little bit of pep in his step. And it brings me to this, man. You mentioned yesterday that one of the things, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, that seems more of a positive than a negative, and maybe not the way we thought, is Brian Gregory feels like he was potentially a home run hire, at least to this point. There's a lot other things we need to get to, and we'll hold him to a higher standard later. But it kind of makes me think, man, Rich Paul was on the phone with Matt Ishbia, but the entire 11-minute series highlighting Brian Gregory shows Brian Gregory was in charge. Who the heck is in charge, man? Or is it a true 50-50 split, and can that work?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a coincidence if we're just sort of like getting into the trying to look at it from the perspective of like the Adobe file of the edit of the video in Premiere or whatever, that they have him going, I'm the GM in the video. Like it's not on accident, but I think that the draft is probably going to be the place where we most likely see Gregory's influence shine the most, and probably the place where he'll do the best. I mean, he's a college coach. That's probably what he should be best at. That's probably the thing you hire him to do. And it's probably not a coincidence that you went ahead and did that at the time you did when you know that this roster needs to reset. So it doesn't surprise me to see that. But I'm just not going to waver from we have so much evidence that Matt Ishbia is the one that is the loudest, most dominant voice in the room. And once again, I'll remind people, a lot of that evidence is from his mouth as recently as last week when he reminded Burns and Gambo that he is going to take a more sizable role. So at this point, you'd be kidding yourself not to say that Matt Ishbia is the end-all be-all for this team. But yeah, does he know who Kobe Bryant is before June? No. So Brian Gregory probably should be the guy to make the final call on something like that.
You know, it's so funny, man. You took the words right out of my mouth. I call it team propaganda because they put in exactly what they want you to see. Really good. We can react to it in July and it's fun. However, I'm the GM was said almost with his voice shaking as he's looking at Matt Ishbia for approval. I'm not putting any more into that, but like you said, dude, we have so much evidence, and here's some of the evidence even more so. In that video as well, you saw Josh Bartelstein, his grummy little Nepo fingers all over the draft board and asking questions. And I don't know if that's the case. If Brian Gregory has his say, maybe he likes Josh Bartelstein. That's not the question. It's, would he have picked him on his staff? And it feels like when I'm seeing Josh Bartelstein being a part of the equation, at least in some way, when Matt Ishbia tells me that that's not going to be the case, he said those are his words. Like, it leads me to believe, man, that it is a Matt Ishbia run organization, and they're trying to get us to think this is a Brian Gregory run ship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Does the social media team or digital content team care what we think? I don't know if they're even trying to get us to think anything. I think that what I do think that there's probably a level of awareness of in that building, though, is that people don't think Brian Gregory deserved the job. People don't think he's ready for the job or that he's going to be good at the job. And so I don't know if it's so much about them trying to do the who's in charge thing as it is this guy. Hey, Summer League just went great. The Suns draft was praised very highly across the board. This is the guy who did it, and he's the one who should be receiving that praise. I think that's all it is.
I get it. But I don't think that the media, social media team is directly going out and doing, like, just, again, the word propaganda, trying to get us to feel a certain way. However, I do think that they have bosses that are directly linked to the front office that says, we know that this had to be shown to 20 different people before it got leaked to
said
YouTube.
on the air last week that he's in charge. So I don't think they're really trying to dispel that notion. I think that that's loud and clear. I think that's what it is.
Exactly. But I think it is them not being told, but encouraged, hey, take out the things that show Matt Ishbia maybe doing a little too much bossing around outside of doing the traditional calling of the owner, but maybe prop Brian Gregory up. That's where I think he's going. I don't think that they're saying, hey, do this. I think they're giving him clear directions on what not to do, leaving them with only one road to go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you're right to point out, like you did at the beginning, that that clip with Ishbia and Rich Paul is, I think those are the types of things that we know. That clip is an example of what we always are kind of wondering about with Ishbia before he just basically told us he was going to be the guy now. Is we were always like, we're not getting the full story. There's clearly more here. Everybody seems to know Ishbia's making the final call, but no one can ever actually pinpoint when that happened or what it looked like or what he said or what happened. That Rich Paul call to me is everything that you had always kind of been wondering about. And I think it's fair to assume that from that point, and maybe this is good. Maybe this is actually a reason to feel decently about all of this. Seems like Rich Paul might have pulled some strings in order to get Malawach here because of that call, because he knew that the Suns were so determined to get him, and because he felt like, hey, there's a wide open hole at center. He probably didn't know Mark Williams was coming to town at that point in time. Rich Paul didn't. But if it's working, it's working. Like, that's the one thing I'll always admit is I don't really care who's calling the shots or a lot of it, as long as the stuff works. The only time I've ever brought the hammer down on Matt Ishbia is when it's failed, and we need to point the finger at the failure, and that's when I've, identified that it's him.
Secondary point that I was thinking of when you were saying the whole Malawach Rich Paul situation. Brian Gregory didn't have any idea how to say Kamal Malawach's name in that video. He completely butchered it, which I thought was really funny for a guy that they loved. and that they loved, and that they said, granted, they didn't have him in for a visit, so I guess that would make sense too. They didn't get the correct pronunciation, but they also said that he was the number 5 guy on their board, which means that obviously they had him ranked pretty highly.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Damian Lillard reintroduced as the newest and oldest member of the Portland Trail Blazers.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast.
Damian Lillard's reintroductory press conference. He was introduced and reintroduced to the media at a press conference alongside Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups on Monday evening inside the Moda Center. And Damian Lillard said what you already knew. It never felt right being away from home. He's back. He's back home. Portland is home in so many ways for Dame. It's home because this is where he started his career and played 11 years of basketball, over a decade before a 2-year stint in Milwaukee, and now he's back. It's home because he's an iconic Portland Trailblazer, one of the best players to ever wear the jersey, certainly the best player of the 21st century. And it's home because this is where his family is. His kids, his parents, his siblings, home. And Dame made it clear. This is where he always wanted to be. And even in the 2 years he spent away in Milwaukee, he never really let it go. So what I want to talk about in today's show is how we got here, where here even is, and where it's headed. How we got here started April 27th of this year in Game 4 of Milwaukee's Eastern Conference playoff series against the Indiana Pacers. Damian Lillard returns from deep vein thrombosis, misses the first 2 games of the series, and makes a fairly stunning return to the court to give Milwaukee a chance, only to take a step back and tear his Achilles. And Damian Lillard said his first thought, he rolled over on the court, grabbed the back of his leg, knew what had happened to him, and said, I'm about to come back from an Achilles. There is nothing more Damian Lillard than that. He is fiercely optimistic. He has a certain type of self-confidence and optimism that is unmatched. It can at times come off as a little corny, quite frankly, but it is deeply authentic. And so Damian Lillard sat on the court, and his first thought is, boy, is the comeback about to be special. Nobody's wired like him. Even the fiercest optimists in the moment don't start thinking about the comeback before they've even tried to stand up. And Dame sat there inside the three-point line, hands on his knees, and was already thinking to himself about how he was going to shock everyone coming back from one of the most devastating injuries. There is nobody more fiercely and authentically and quite frankly defiantly optimistic than Damian Lillard. When he got into the locker room and the team doctor told him that he had torn his Achilles, the Bucks physical therapists, the PTs, the trainers were crying because they knew this was the type of injury that changes lives, derails careers, and Damian Lillard at 34 was staring down a long road back and had just sustained a truly life-altering, career-altering injury. And Damian Lillard said he didn't cry. He said, they felt more pity for me than I felt for myself. And that triggered the first event of how we got here. The Bucks, knowing Damian Lillard would miss all of this coming season, 25-26, and likely take some time to get back to his full self if he should do so, chose to waive him, send him into free agency. And Damian Lillard as once he hit free agency, somewhat surprisingly, pretty quickly connected with the Trailblazers and Joe Cronin. And as Joe Cronin said at today's press conference, it went pretty smooth. They met with them being Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups, met with Damian Lillard at his house a couple times and kind of discussed what it would look like, how it would work, and what both sides would need to do to get it done. They eventually agreed to a 3-year, $42 million contract, and Damian Lillard is back. But even to get to that point, from torn Achilles to free agent to agreeing to a contract in Damian Lillard's home, meeting with the lead decision makers of the organization and deciding that a reunion was both palatable and both sides were willing and excited to make this reunion happen. There was some fences that needed to be mended. When Damian Lillard left in 2023, he wrote a lengthy thank you note to the community and to the fans, and he even name dropped some media members and a whole bunch of folks that he worked with the Blazers over time, various staff members and a whole bunch of Chauncey Billups' coaching staff that he named by name, right? Like, these are the people that meant a lot to my journey, and I hope to blah blah blah. And he didn't mention Joe Cronin. It was a little bit cold between them. And when Dame came back for the first time with Milwaukee, did not acknowledge Joe Cronin. They weren't homies. Dame was asked whether, when that sort of relationship changed and what caused it to change. And he responded in the way that Damian Lillard does, thoughtful and at length, and in some ways in rejection of the premise of the question itself. I was never not a fan of Joe Cronin. Just at the time, there was some misunderstanding and miscommunication. And Damian Lillard went on to say, it's like basically he felt like he was misportrayed in the media. He felt like there was some things that were said, oh, Dame's doing this and this and this. And he just said that I wasn't doing that. And to say have basically, to put a fine point on it, to have Adrian Wojnarowski say you're doing one thing, and then from Dame's side to have Chris Haynes say you're doing another thing, it created some bad blood between Cronin and Dame on the way out the door. And from the moment he requested a trade in July until he was traded finally in September, it was a long road. It was a long, 3 months. But Dame said that what he kind of regretted about that is that Joe and him never talked. They never sat down and talked about that relationship and sort of what had gone wrong. Instead, they just let it be what it was, and that, in Dame's mind, was a mistake. But Dame mentioned that when he came here last time, he was in this building in the Moda Center as a visitor twice. Second time he comes back with the Bucks. Before the game, he went over to the baseline where Cronin and the Allen and Jody Allen and Burt Colt sit, and sometimes Dwayne Hankins too. Shout out Dwayne, but the Blazers brass, right? The decision makers, the C-suites and the ownership group. And Dame, said hello to Burt and Dwayne and Jody, and then he dapped up Joe Cronin, and he said at the time that it was a moment was to let them know that, hey, there's nothing, we can turn the page on this. That greeting was a moment to say this can be behind us. Dame said, and I quote here, "Sometimes when it's emotional, you handle yourself by protecting yourself from what's going on. And then over time, you calm down and you figure it out." So they mended the fence, basically via the linear passage of time. And then after, when Dame was available in free agency, Dame mentioned it didn't need to be a long conversation. They were able to move past that because they both knew that, hey, that's behind us. We've kind of, there is no lingering beef. We've kind of let that simmer, that's cooled down, and here we go. Let's make it happen. And Damian Lillard signed a contract on Saturday, officially joining the organization. And he brought his kids with him. That's where we are now. He's back, and he's a dad, a local dad in the community.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
We talked about, or at least I talked about, you're going to react to what I talked about, the best of the best, right? And we realized that the Knicks have some of the top end talent in the NBA, but I wanted to stick with the theme, mostly just because I'm having a lot of fun spending hours ranking these players and poring over stats and still probably not quite knowing enough to do this, but doing my best. I wanted to rank the 4th and 5th starters. Maybe we'll do a third show ranking the bench. Again, if you guys enjoy this and respond well to it, we'll keep it going. And seeing where teams stack up in terms of what I would term just sort of like the supporting cast or tertiary pieces on their team. So we are going to tell you a little bit about Mikal Bridges, Mitchell Robinson. Are they top 5 at their respective spots? But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Alex, I'll leave it to you. I rolled solo earlier. What did you think about my rankings? Just to remind everyone for full context, these are predicated on our Locked On co-hosts rankings of individuals on their team. And then I grouped them by best player, second best player, third best player, and I ranked all the Knicks in those areas. How do you think I did? Was I too low? Was I too high on our guys?
I think I mostly agree. I mean, I think if I'm being completely honest with some of the so I mean your top 6, which ended with Jalen Brunson at number 6, was Jokic, which I fully agree, Giannis, which I fully agree, SGA, which I fully agree. The only point where I start maybe questioning if Brunson could be one spot higher is with Luka at 4, which on a pure talent level basis, I agree that he should be there. But on like a how many questions are there about this guy long term type level, I go, like I still think that the Mavs were stupid for trading him for what they did. When they did it and everything else this past season. And yet, the more time goes by, the more I think, man, like if he doesn't get his conditioning together and if he doesn't start taking things a little more seriously at a certain point, it's going to derail his career in a way where even LA might start questioning their decision to build around him. So from that perspective, I have less worries long-term about Jalen Brunson and even Jason Tatum, who was next on the list, at 5 and 6 after Luka at 4. So I guess I'll say first, that's the only one where I maybe go, like I could almost see Luka at 6 just based off how things sort of ended this year for him. And this is a real prove it year for him to be like, hey, I'm more than just raw talent. I'm also very dedicated to being a winning LA Laker basketball player. So we're going to see how that works out, obviously, once he reports for training camp and everything, and we start seeing how he looks. As far as the second best player rankings, I'm also pretty much right there with you. Although, so Jalen Williams at 1, Maxey at 2.
I said on the show, I don't think he deserves that. I just really like him and I'm really high on him. So that was a very subjective one. I will acknowledge. I just think the guy's incredible. But sorry, go ahead.
I do think he's really good too. I mean, Maxey at 2, Brown at 3, LeBron at 4. I mean, I would say if we're just talking about who at this particular moment in time is better, I'd probably have LeBron like maybe at number 2
that's fair.
On this list, because I think it's just even if you only get one more season out of him, it's going to be one really, really good season. And I refuse to believe he's ever going to age whenever he decides to call it quits. And then Kyrie Irving, and then Karl Anthony Towns, then Pascal Siakam. Much as it pains me to admit, like Pascal Siakam, I almost think could be higher just based off of the postseason that he just had.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that he can do some ball handling and stuff, which is really valuable. I don't really, beyond that number 7, I don't really have any issue because I think those top 7 are all correct. I would maybe just reorder it a little bit, like actually move, perhaps even on my list, I would maybe say Kyrie below Cat and Siakam, perhaps Siakam above Cat, and then I'll probably have LeBron at number 2, and I might move Maxey down to like number 5 or something like that. However that ends up working out. I'd still have Cat probably in that 5 to 6 range when all the dust settled. So I think I'm right there with you there. And then
I think my logic there was, and I don't know if it holds up because Pascal's just so much better defensively than Cat, and just someone you don't have to think about on that end of the floor. While Cat is such a liability, we're screaming about it all the time. I think I just felt Cat was so far from being optimized, where I felt like Siakam was perfectly optimized. Like, I just wonder if you flip Rick Carlisle and Tom Thibodeau, how does it look? Like, I think there's a world where Cat's putting up like 30 and 11 on insane efficiency in that series. So that was my only argument. LeBron, the only thing there was that I just don't think he can survive 4 playoff rounds playing like high level basketball. But I did, to your point, make the case. Look, if you put LeBron on OKC and he's playing 20 minutes a game in round 1, 20 minutes a game in round 2, 30 minutes round 3, 33, 34 in the finals, maybe on that plan, he's like a much better version of Jalen Williams. So I totally hear you there. I think it's an interesting argument.
Yeah, I kind of just think, it's you have to like manage it right with LeBron given his age and everything. But I think if you can, I think we still see that. I mean, he has some of the craziest skill set
for sure
available in the NBA still to this day. But I also, a good point with the Towns versus Siakam thing. It's just, if we're just talking about pure talent, I think we saw more pure talent than results from Cat this year, because I don't think Tibbs used him right either. And I think we're well on record with how we felt about all that. For the third best player, Chet at number 1. Yeah, that's a no doubter. I mean, it's ludicrous that he gets to be the third best player on a team, but that's why they just won the championship. Derek White at number 2, OG Anunoby at number 3, Aaron Gordon at 4, Bane at 5, Cooper Flagg at 6, Amin Thompson at 7, Darius Garland at 8, Nembhard at 9, Draymond Green at 10. I won't go beyond that. But I'm kind of with you on these ones too. I feel the same way about, like, I think White and Anunoby, like, because of what their skill is and the fact that, like, when you get down to third best player level, I think the criteria starts changing a little bit for like, do you need this guy to be the third best, like, potential superstar, or do you need him to be the third best, like, just guy that can be supplementary then? And in that perspective, I think White and Anunoby are like among the best in the NBA at that. Gordon also really elite there too. If I was going to just pick a nit here, I would maybe say I would probably put Amin Thompson over Cooper Flagg before Coops played a NBA minute. Fair. Just because I think Amin's really, really good, but I'm like super high on him. I would almost, I mean, this is me betting on a leap. I would almost be willing to start thinking about putting him over Bane and or Gordon at this point too, and move him way up there, just because I think the defense, the ball handling, like everything that he offers is just such good, like third best player material, where he can go out there and like be your best player on any given night if you need him to be, but other nights just kind of play connector, and that you're just going to get like really good defense out of him like all the time. I'm like super high on him. I mean, if the 3-point shot comes around, like forget about it. He's going to be like a multi-time all-star potentially. But for now, I'm just like, I think that he's like, if you gave me, given their ages and everything, if you, even though where they're at on this respective list, if you said to me like, hey, would you do Amin for OG straight up, even with the Knicks wanting to contend this year, I'd be like, yeah, I'd probably do it, because I'd be willing to just take that chance on the upside bet, while also having, feeling relatively confident that, like, even if he didn't quite reach OG levels of being able to space the floor and stuff, that he'd still do so much additive stuff that you could just kind of wait out the leap and then be better set for the future, even if it maybe hurts your chances of winning a championship like this year a little bit.
Yeah, my criteria for this was just next season. I completely agree with you. Like, if this was who do you want for the rest of their careers, I'm taking Amin Thompson probably over everyone other than Holmgren and Flagg. And Holmgren is, maybe a little bit of I'd probably take Chet Holmgren, but I'm with you. Like if he's just not one of the worst 3-point shooters in the NBA, if he's like an average 3-point shooter, he probably shoots up to 5 almost right away on this list. I think Flag is just, even as a rookie, a safer bet to shoot the ball well and be someone who has to be guarded. I think over 40% from 3 at Duke. And Bane is obviously just one of the best 3-point shooters in the world, even if he doesn't have the supplemental skill set that those guys have. I figured you wouldn't push back on Darius Garland. If there are any Cavs fans watching, which I can't imagine there are, I'm sure they would.